Hello, everyone. I'm here today with Anthony Jurjevic of Techspedient. He is our IT company sponsor. And I wanted to talk to him today because there's a lot of talk about IT and a lot of questions on the internet about how much should I pay? Is this fair? Look at my quote here on this computer and stuff. Anthony, let's start actually by talking about who you are and how long have you been doing this?
Sure. So I didn't just wake up one day and say, I want to do IT. I went to college for it, got my degree, went into the real world, worked for a lot of consulting firms, learned my trade, got certified in vendor certifications. It's like doing CE for dental, but we're doing certifications that we have to continuously get and achieve. And did the enterprise stuff for about 20 years, started my own business after that, started to cater towards dental. So my wife's a dentist. She said she had issues with her IT and she wanted me to come and take a look. I went in, I said, look, it's really messy. I need a weekend to just clean it up. I went in, cleaned it up one weekend. Next week, everything's working great. It's faster. You should do this for other dental practices. And I was getting paid well as a consultant, but the travel was a little tiresome. So after a few months, I decided I was going to start my own business and help the dental community secure themselves and optimize their networks. So that's my story. I still have some vendor certifications. I maintain my CISSP, which is really like the gold standard of cybersecurity certifications. It's only got a 20% pass rate. So I will continue to do my CE to maintain that one. So that's pretty much it for me.
So you're telling me that all these people on the internet claiming they're cybersecurity experts, all 20% of them must be on the internet, on Facebook, because all I hear are everybody's a cybersecurity expert.
The problem with the industry, IT, it's not regulated. So anyone could wake up and say, hey, I'm an IT expert, I'm a cyber expert, and they could open up shop. Nobody would even bother digging into that. It's not like dental where, you have to pass boards, you have to get licensed. It's none of that applies to IT. So that's why it's important to vet your IT.
And that's important because IT used to be difficult, but with technology, everything got easier. And unfortunately, today, the criminals out there have found a way to make billions of dollars. And we're not talking about millions. This is $1 billion industry. For someone like me who has done this since I was 14 years old, I'm smart enough to know that I don't have time to keep up with the latest security. So I hire someone like Anthony. One of the things that I wanted to bring up, Anthony, is what you do as an IT company and a cybersecurity company for dentists, because there are a lot of quotes out there and none of it is comparing apples to apples, right? And that's what we want to do. Tell me a little bit about the comprehensive services that you give people. You basically are providing an IT department, right?
That's the approach we took. When I first started the business, I was more the typical IT where, hey, we'll provide remote support. If you need on-site support, we'll send someone out and we'll bill you on that. If there's project-related work, we'll also bill you separately for that. That caused a lot of conflicts. The way I looked at it is when they send someone on site and they're billing you at whatever hourly rate or even a flat fee for that on-site visit, they're not necessarily sending their best person out there, right? They're going to send level one newbie probably, because they need to make as much profit as they can at that billable rate. So I took all of that away. I was like, you know what? We're going to offer a comprehensive plan that's going to include all of it for a monthly fee. They're not going to get billed for any labor outside of that monthly fee. The only exception we have to that is cabling. If we have to run cabling, if it's like a startup and they're renovating the building and they need new cabling run, That's a separate, that's the only thing that's separate for a project.
That's construction, basically. They can get their contractor do it as well, or they can have you do it. So you're
Right.
not in that business. I also like the fact that you help people buy computers. They can buy it from you, which is basically cheaper than going to Dell themselves. And if they can find it cheaper somewhere else and it's the same specs, you have no problems them buying it. You're not selling hardware like all these other companies.
When I get a server quote, like a request from a client, let's say they need a server, their server aged out. We tell them, hey, your server's 8 years old. We really need to replace it. I'll put a quote together. I'll also, what I typically do is say it's a Dell. I'll go to Dell's website, I'll spec it out. I'll send those specs to my distributor. They'll come back with a quote, which is usually cheaper than what you get buying directly from Dell. And I provide the link when I send them the email with the quote. I provide the link to the Dell site costs if you buy it here. And then this is the price if you buy it through us, through our distributor, because we get favorable pricing. So it's less than what you would buy at retail if you were to do it yourself. And I also tell my clients, if you ever find it cheaper somewhere else, as long as it's in line with our specs that we've provided, go ahead and buy it. To us, it's hardware. I'm not in the business to make money off of hardware. You're paying for my skills, right? And my team's knowledge, not for us to just resell hardware.
So you're not in the business of selling hardware, and that's good because we see these quotes. We see a server that is worth $1,500 and it's being sold for $7,000,
Yes.
or an office that needs a $3,000 server and it's being sold a $12,000 server,
Yeah.
right? Tell me about that.
So yeah, there was a dental office that wanted me to do an assessment. And I went in, looked at the server. They bought the server brand new, like it's less than a year old. And they told her that it had SSD drives in it, solid state drives. Turned out it didn't. It had regular spinners, but yet they sold them a server that was supposed to have SSD. And the dentist didn't really know how to look for that. And I showed her, this is how you look for it. A lot of the providers, they're very vague with their quotes, meaning they'll just put Dell, PowerEdge. They won't put all the specific components. If they're being vague with the server components, that's a red flag that they're hiding something or they're increasing the pricing more than they should. Me, I'm transparent. I'm like, here's what you're getting. You're getting a Xeon processor. You're getting like 64 or 96 gigs of RAM. You're getting these SSD drives. It's going to be in a RAID 5. It's all spelled out in our quotes. I'm very transparent. Whatever the Dell quote looks like, that's exactly what I put in to our quote.
You go and buy this computer from this IT company that's giving you the quote, and they're telling you the storage on these computers is a faster storage, the newer technology solid state drives, rather than those old technology where the hard drive is spinning and it has a needle. They were great, but they're slower. They've had a lot of issues when they crash, and they're telling you that they're giving you a Lamborghini, but they're giving you a Toyota. That's unethical, and hopefully that was just a mistake on the part of the IT guys, right?
I hope, but I don't think it was because she texted him and she took a picture of where it said that it was a 10K or 7200K RPM drive, and then he never responded to her. So I felt bad because I knew she got ripped off. I hate that there's unethical and it makes the industry look bad. And I don't like that because I'm in the industry. And that whenever I see stuff like that, I hate it because it makes us all look bad. But there are ethical IT providers out there.
I want to talk about a couple of things. Number one, I want to explain to people why I recommend Anthony. And what Anthony's service is one flat fee per month. And because he has costs per computer or per server, he charges you per computers. And the number of computers is important because he has to install programs on it. But also what he doesn't do is that if you call him each time, he has to send someone to your office, or he himself flies out to you. He doesn't charge anymore, correct?
Correct. With the dentistry in general, like the sponsorship, they get a 10% discount. And then I also waive the onboarding fee. The reason I waive the onboarding fee is I walk into a lot of dental practices where their network's really messy. Like they don't, the server isn't configured properly. Things are just not set up right. And if I was to literally charge onboarding fees for that, the dentist would probably question whether I'm really telling them the truth or not, because our onboarding is different. We don't just stick our agents on and say, okay, we're done, we're onboarded. If we see that there are issues, we're going to fix those issues and optimize your network for the best performance. That's typically what we try to do. I know there's a couple that I've onboarded recently that I have to go back, and we're pretty much redoing their entire server build because it's just not worth trying to fix it. So we're going to go back one weekend, wipe everything, and build it from scratch and set it up that. That's at no charge. Like that's included as part of the monthly, right? So
And that's what the question that came up recently. You and I were talking that when I recommended you, they're like, oh, but he's based in New Jersey. How can he help me? And I'm like, he's going to fly out to you. And they didn't understand that you basically, this is part of the contract, right? You don't
right.
charge him extra for travel. You don't charge him extra for your time there. It's just one monthly fee. And that's what I liked about your services is that it's all inclusive. If there's something wrong with their software, they call you instead of calling the company to be on hold for 2 hours, right?
Yeah, correct. So part of it we include is vendor management. If there's an issue with your internet provider, with your VoIP provider, any of your practice management, your imaging, your patient communication software, you submit a ticket to us and we will reach out to the vendor. We'll work with them. We'll get them remoted in. And we do this for two reasons. One is to eliminate your staff from having to sit on the phone and deal with them. And two, to also make sure that when they're remoted in, someone's watching them, because I've seen vendors disable security like Windows Firewall or Windows Defender, which we like to keep running, even though we have our own antivirus installed and our own stuff, but we still like to keep that running because we like layers from a security perspective. But I've seen them disable that, and we always push back and tell them, you need to fix this without disabling. So it's important that the IT should be watching the vendors, because all they care about is fixing your issue. And if it means disabling security or opening up a vulnerability, they don't care. They, at the end of the day, they're off and it's not their responsibility. So that's why we took that approach.
I want people to understand to first of all not to try to go on the dark web, please. It takes specific tools to get onto the dark web. It's not a place for you and I to hang out and look through. But Anthony has to go there because you're looking for certain information. What did you find, Anthony?
Okay. So I normally look at the ransomware forums. I see a list of ransomware groups. They all have forums in the dark web where they leak all their data from all of their victims. I want to dispel a myth. Like, I know this myth goes through the dental groups. Oh, if you got hit with ransomware, they didn't steal your data, they just locked your files. That's the furthest thing from the truth. They take your files when they ransom you because they want to get paid twice. They want to get paid by you for the ransomware, and then they're going to come back and say, hey, by the way, we also have your data. We'd like you to pay us an additional amount, and we won't publish it. Or they will publish it, or they'll sell it. It's one of the three options. And the reason I'm going in there is because there are several practices that have gotten hit with ransomware, and then we came in afterwards, and they lost data. So I'm usually going in there to see if I can maybe find their data, find the decryption keys, and see if I can extract some of that info. But I come across other dental practices that have been hit, like this one, for example. This is a multi-doctor practice. These are all the doctors here. This is what they've published as far as you could download a patient list of 18,000 patients for this practice in Florida. I blocked everything out because I don't want to expose that. Even though it is public domain, I could literally publish this and I wouldn't get in trouble because it's already published, but I like to protect people's identities. Here's another one where you could download all of their medical records. I guess their x-rays, maybe patient forms, all in zipped files. You could see there's each one of these is a separate zip file that you could download. The patient list has, their address, full name, phone number, date of birth, driver's license, social security numbers. You could pretty much identity theft 101 right there with that list. And then if you look here, they tell you basically the data that they have. They have finance data, HR data, partner patient confidential data, patient images, medical records, 18,000 lines, name, street address, phone numbers, all that information it has. This is the actual one of the other groups that I've perused. You could see this site is pretty cool because it shows you whether their forum or site is up or down. Sometimes they're down at the time, but then they bring it back up. Like this one's still active right here, even though it says it's down. This one, this is their WikiLeaks in the dark web. And then this starts all of their victims of the companies they've hit with ransomware. This is another one, Buy and Lion. They're another ransomware group. They're enrolling associates. They want affiliates to work with us, target providers, software engineers, pen testers, journalists. They're looking for people to join them and help with this effort. Like it's mind-boggling that they're doing that. But I just want to point this out that the reality is that ransomware is for real and they are stealing data and dentists are falling victims to it, even though you don't see it or you don't hear about it. Like I could do a search in a bunch of forums and I could find, like the last one I did, there are about 77 practices that got hit with ransomware over the last couple of months.
Dentists are a big target
Yeah.
because we don't educate ourselves on cybersecurity. We try to save money on different things, and this is something you should not save money on. And you need to make sure there are good IT providers out there. You need to ask questions. Anthony, tell me what they should look for. How should they be set up in a typical dental office?
Typical dental, like the way we set things up is a little bit different than how most providers do it. Like if they're server based, we like to virtualize the environment. It creates a container within the server. We usually create two virtual machines or two containers. One handles authentication, DNS, and other things from an administrative standpoint. The other one handles applications like their practice management, imaging. The reason we like to do that is that containerizes each of the items, and then it also provides flexibility for like disaster recovery. So basically the way we back those up, we can actually recover those, especially places like Florida or Texas where they're prone to natural disasters like hurricanes. We can literally spin those virtual machines up in the cloud and get them up and running like within an hour. With a physical server, you can't really do that. Like it's more steps to be able to do that. So we like the flexibility of doing that. Then we configure the server properly. We create group policies. We lock it down. We make sure that only certain people can log into the server directly. We only have one or two administrative credentials, and they're typically 26 characters in length, and they're rotated periodically in our documentation portal. Like I said, we lock down the workstations too. For example, we could prevent the ops from the users from browsing in the operatory computers. We can lock that down, but they still have internet access, but they're just not allowed to browse if that's what a practice wants. We can prevent a USB device, them putting a USB device into the front desk computers. Ops are a little bit trickier because you have the sensors, but on the front desk, we can prevent people just inserting USB drives, which we don't know if they got them in the mail, if it has malicious code in it. We lock those things down. We put in a lot of group policies that a lot of IT providers don't do. I don't want to give away too much of our secrets because it's my skill set, our team's skill set. It's our secret sauce to making sure that things are running optimally.
But also you set up nice firewall that is configured. These firewalls are difficult to configure.
Yeah, we put that in. We include that as part of our service. So like they don't have to buy the firewall, we just drop it in. We configure it properly. It's in 100% stealth mode. We include the services with it, the antivirus, the web content filtering. We geofence it as well. We include the wireless access if they want, and we separate and isolate the guest from the private appropriately. And we test that to make sure that it's done that way. A lot of dental practices I walk into, they have a guest and a private, and I'll run a scan on the guest. I'll connect to the guest, run a scan, and I can literally connect to the devices on the private network because they just don't know how to configure it properly and isolate the two.
Separate. I've been talking about cloud for years. I also want to mention here, when someone has cloud software, the fees are lower, correct?
The fees are lower, yeah, because we don't have to back up a server. We don't have to maintain a server. And if they do have a CBCT, because I know CBCTs have to still be stored locally, we typically treat that as another workstation rather than a server. We're not pricing it out with a server in mind. And we back it up locally with a workstation rate backup rather than a server backup rate.
A couple of the cloud providers now offer that backup of the CBCT and actually sharing the CBCT with other doctors. That's coming soon to our group as well. But we have these aggressive salespeople that are trying to sell the cloud software, telling people you don't need IT anymore because we take care of your data. That's not true, correct? HIPAA requires you to have on-premise security.
Yeah, because here's the thing. They may be protecting you from like ransomware or on their end, the back end, but that still doesn't mean that your data can't be copied off or screen scraped off. All it takes is if you're not running security in your practice and you're cloud-based, I can send you a phishing, or a hacker can send you a phishing link. Your staff clicks on it, opens up a document, and then all of a sudden I have a foothold on your system. At that point, I'm going through your Chrome browser, which is probably where you're storing your passwords. Or if not, I'm going to inject the keylogger. So when you do log in with your password, I have that information. And then from there, I'm good. I can log in as you from anywhere, and I can start looking at your data. I can start copying it off. I can start changing treatment if I wanted to. There's a lot of damage I can do. And I can even start extorting your patients. If I'm a cyber criminal and I start pulling your patient data off, all I have to do is I come to you and say, hey, I have all this data from you. You're going to pay me, or I'm going to start calling your patients. And that's happened before too.
So I want to summarize this thing as that what Anthony does is different than what you hear out there. I'm very passionate about this. I looked very hard to find someone that I can trust. Anthony brings you for a monthly fee an IT department. That is the most important aspect of your practice. This is the most precious thing that you have, that your data, and allowing it to be taken hostage. It's not just damaging to your business, but it's also damaging to your patients. We have a responsibility to protect the information that's been given to us to safeguard. And if we're looking for bargains, I don't know, 30 computers at $399. We've seen those quotes from different people. They can't afford giving you what you need.
Yeah, they're not doing what they should be doing. And if you're not sure, like, we offer the group a complimentary cyber assessment. It's basically a phishing simulation. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't install anything. It just really does a really deep scan of your network, and it looks for vulnerabilities. It actually tests your antivirus. It tests your firewall. It tests like your policies that you have in place. And from that, we generate a report. We go over it, and there's no obligation. You can just take that report, give it to your IT if you want. And if they want to remediate it themselves, they can do it themselves. Or if you're interested in using us and it's a good fit, then we can move forward with a support plan and pricing that out for them.
Hey, I want to thank you for being here today. Hopefully we can do this again.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you,
Great.
Doctor. Appreciate it.
Thank you.